and welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Camilla Cleghorn, and today we're going to look at a standalone version of one of my favorite games of all times, and that is going to be Spirit Island. I'm talking, of course, about Horizons of Spirit Island. Here in the United States, this initial release is going to be Target exclusive, so that's where you can pick this game up. But for overseas and international fans, there are some limited distribution of the game as well that they can pick up. But for us here in the US, it is Target exclusive. I keep almost saying Kickstarter. I need to get that out of my mouth, out of my mind. But this is going to be Target exclusive. The game promised when it was released that it was going to be a better entry point for those who are looking to get into the game. It's not going to have any of the expansions included in it, Branch and Claw, Jagged Earth, Nature Incarnate, or any of the others to come. It is just a lower price point, easier to get into version of Spirit Island. Before we go too much into that and see, did they make it work or not, let's take a look at what does come in the box, as well as what comes in the box compared to base Spirit Island. Alright, so first here I just want to go over what is going to come in this box of Horizons of Spirit Island. The first thing to note is the box is a little bit smaller, significantly thinner than the base box of Spirit Island and Jagged Earth. It will, though, come with two books. One is going to be the rule book and the other is going to be a quick start guide. And this can kind of be thought of as your first play and then your glossary or more in-depth rules. So as we open it up here, you're going to see this is where you're going to find your component list, as well as the in-depth explanation of each of the phases of the game, giving a lot of examples here, etc., etc. And in the back, which is same to the form of Spirit Island base game, you kind of have the lore and the story in the back to help you set the stage, if you will. Next up is going to be our quick start guide here, and this is just that. It is a true quick start guide that's going to walk you through step-by-step setup and the first entire round of the game. Now it is to note that this is set up on the 3-player side of the board, which we'll get to here in a minute. We'll take a look at the 2-player as well, but it is set up as a 3-player game. It does explain that the concepts are the same if you want to do a 2-player game, but it is going to go through and talk about the spirit selection, setting the game up, and detailed first turn and round, leaving you to finish the game, making your own choices with the knowledge it's given you of this on this first playthrough. Alright, so speaking of the 2- and 3-player game, this version of the game is only for 2 or 3 players, and you can see that here as I annotated here. This is this is the 2-player side of the board, and then the other one is going to be our 3-player game. This is a static board, but it does have the other boards from Spirit Island incorporated into one big static board and layout. The game is going to come with 5 different spirits here, each having the 2-sided player boards like we're used to seeing. These are the thinner boards that we did expect with this, but it still has the lore, the setup, play style, and the summary down here, so you can kind of see the different things that the spirits are good at. The game is also going to come for each character. I have 3 of them out here, but for each character is going to have the power progression. I've already pulled out those cards for each of these 3 characters, as well as the 4 or 5 starting cards for them as well. As we would expect, because this is only a 3-player game, we have 3 new colors for the characters you play with. Fear deck, fear cards, minor, major power cards, the Explore deck here, money, Blight, Explorers, Invaders, Cities, Towns, and Dahan. It is to note here that there's also included some 3 Explorers, just I think to help with the board getting a little bit busy, which we'll talk more about later, but you can use those. As we know, these are not a limited supply. So the 3 will just help keep control of the board for visual purposes and usability, but also just so that to make sure you have enough tokens. The Cities and Towns and Dahan are both 2-sided, one side showing full health, the other side showing with 1 damage. So let me go ahead and get this set up for a 3-player game before we do kind of a deep dive into the comparison of these components to what we're used to in the base game of Spirit Island. Alright, and there you can see we are now set up for our 3-player game. These are the 3 spirits which are recommended, and it guides you through the setup in the quick start guides with their 4 cards each starting and their power progression decks already selected for them. So from here, I want to go ahead and dive in a little bit into the component comparison because I think that this is a really big part of the game. We know when they were designing this, they wanted to kind of keep that price point lower for people to have a better entry point into the game. Hence part of the quick start guide. It's for people that don't really know the game and are not quite ready to dive into the full price of the base Spirit Island game. So here, they've simplified it with a quick start guide, helping you walk through and teach you the game as you go through that guide, as well as keep the price low to kind of help that entry. And the concession in that was going to cardboard components, as you can see here. I do have some of the original ones from the base Spirit Island game just to compare to. So first up we have the Dahan, which are annotated by these little mushroom huts, as some people call them. I do have mine from the base game painted, so you'll have to imagine that they are this color that you see on the bottom here. But that is the comparison for that. Next up we have the Explorers, as you can see here. So there is the comparison for that. And of course towns, that is a town, and a city with the three rooftops there. Finally, the last component that is pretty significantly different from the base Spirit Island game is going to be your blight tokens, annotated by this cardboard token here or this little dot from the base Spirit Island game. Now I go through all the trouble of showing you this because this is something I'm going to bring up here in a little bit in my review as well. It's just how crowded the board can get. Keep in mind, this is just set up. We have not gone through and done any build actions or put extra spirits out there. There's very little blight on the board. A lot is going to happen on this board over the next couple rounds. So for example, let's take on this side of the board here, this H part of the island, land 6. This is just what it looks like starting with Fathomless Mud of the Swamp in this area here. So you can see we've not even begun the game and this area is pretty crowded. Once this wetland builds next turn, it's going to look like this. And then if we don't take care of it, it's going to look like this. Quickly becoming a jumbled mess spilling over into other lands that you really can't see what's going on, compared to the base Spirit Island, which would look something like this. Quite a big difference in the usability of this. But on that note, let's head back up top and I will really kind of give you some in-depth thoughts, not just about the components, but the gameplay. Do I think that they really hit what they were going for in easing that entry? Let's go back up top and talk face to face. All right, so with that, you can immediately see one of my issues with this game. The components are very fine quality. In a lot of ways, it's the same quality that we see in the base game. The cardboard is nice and thick. The player boards are thinner, the player panels, but we expected this. They did make that announcement ahead of time. I, for one, was part of the group that was kind of hee-hawing back and forth, not sure if I liked it. I like that they're smaller and gonna not take up as much room in the box. But on the other hand, I like that big, chunky, thick board that's not going to bend and warp, and it's just going to kind of house everything nicely. So I went back and forth, but I've actually found in using them that it doesn't bother me how thin they are. For storage purposes in the future, as we see more and more expansions come for this, it is something that I am considering switching over to as they become available for the spirits I already have. I'm not sure, I'm not sold yet on it, but it definitely didn't bother me like I thought it would to have those thinner boards. So quality of the components, I really think they did well here. Now, usability of the components is atrocious. It is so frustrating. Just in the base setup, like you saw there, the board is already crowded. So for those of us that are used to Spirit Island and already kind of accustomed to the potential fiddliness of this game, it's just that much more crowded and completely unusable. I mean, I saw myself in a couple plays when I was using the components that came in it. I'd put them down, and even being used to the game, I can't remember which town was in which one and which city, and is that Dahan mine or is that this one, and where's it go? And then you're moving and you have to like pick the tokens up, you can't slide them because they're gonna knock everything else over. It was just completely unusable. But the two things that I think that this game kind of promise to give to people is new spirits, which for those of us that like Spirit Island, we are always hungry for more spirits and to see what they can do and how they can introduce and change the world. So more spirits, and two, the gameplay. The gameplay being the quick start guide and the just normal gameplay. So let's start there with the gameplay. The gameplay is going to be at the end of the quick start guide. It is everything base Spirit Island. So again, you're not going to have the branch and claw and jagged earth, beast tokens and wild tokens and that kind of stuff, but you have all of the base stuff. It also comes with the progression cards that we see for a couple of the entry level spirits in base Spirit Island. It comes with those for the spirits as well. And I think that that was a really smart choice for people who are getting into this game. But more on that when we get to the spirits. But there were some really good design choices in that to ease that gameplay. Now, when I was playing the quick start guide, I did supplement all of the components for extra ones that I have in the base game, just to help ease that. And I played it both with people who know Spirit Island to start with, and that went really, really well. But I want to take it a little further and try it with those who did not know Spirit Island. So most recently on the Dice Tower Cruise, I actually took my copy with me and sat down to teach some people that had never played. And I have to say, it went really well. So being able to pull out that quick start guide, go through it step by step to help them learn the game was a really smooth process for them. As a teacher, I also felt that it helped me because I was able to see when to present what information to them so they could see kind of how the game builds up. So both from a teacher point of view, but also a learning point of view, I think that this quick start guide is fantastic. It is set up for a 3-player game, but what I really like about it is in that 3-player game, it shows you the whole spectrum of Spirit Island. It shows you from everything of how to grow and what option to choose, how to strategize where to put your presence out and how that decision is going to affect later in the round. It shows you how choosing the right power cards are going to evoke some of your innate powers, and it shows you that round out as well through the different 3 spirits. So one person is not overwhelmed with all that information. You know, of the 3 starting spirits, only one of them unlocks those innate powers that first round. But if you're playing a 3-player game, you still get to see that without having the burden of it actually happening to you. And I think that that was a really good design choice. You can see the different growth options, how getting the extra energy or getting the extra card plays just by both playing, having your round played for you and explained to you, but also observing those of the others. And that was a fantastic choice, and it is really, really well done in this. So on that note, let's flip over and talk about the spirits here for a few minutes. I think that all of these spirits are really easy to pick up. I think each individual one is powerful in its own way, but yet they maintain that balance and synergy between each other so you can see, again, that cooperation that's necessary. So each stands alone on its own, which allows you to pick any of these spirits and combo with any of them and really have a good balanced experience. And I think that's really key for people playing the first time. I mentioned earlier the power progression cards, which we see carried over from the original Spirit Island as well. I'm so glad to see that they kept that. Now, with the original Spirit Island, they did have that power progression card, but I was very quick to jump out of that. I think I played once with each spirit and then I was like, I don't like this. I understand how to pick now. That's all I ever want to do. And sometimes I'm even hesitant if I play with experienced gamers. I don't give them that power progression in the base Spirit Island because I don't feel like it sets them up for those powerful moves. I feel like these power progressions are much more focused on that spirit and helping them unlock those innate abilities and innate powers, which 1 feels good and 2 helps understand the flow of the game and later on why you're going to pick certain cards. And so I think that is they took a system that they knew worked, but in this even improved it further. And that's really nice to see and very natural. So it's after playing here with the, like I said, on the Dice Tower Cruise with people who had never played before, I found myself still using those innate powers and be like, do you want to play one more time with it just to really get it? And yeah, absolutely. Or anytime I introduce a new spirit, I might pull out those power progressions because I think they're that good and that made for each individual spirit in a way that still makes you feel like you are making meaningful decisions. All right, so kind of my final thoughts here. I am really divided on this. So actually, I'm going to start out by giving you 2 different scores for this, and then I'll kind of come to my final thoughts where I kind of meet in the middle on it. So first off, let's talk about this as a game for those who already have Spirit Island. So I'll kind of talk about my own experience, expectations, and what I thought at the end playing with I'll say with myself. I played two-handed, a 2-player version, as well as playing with other people who already knew Spirit Island and gathering their thoughts as well. So in that case, if you have experience with Spirit Island, I'm going to give this a 9.5. I was amazed by it. I really think that they set out to create spirits that would appeal to both people who are entry level or maybe like those lower level of plays, those lower level difficulty of plays. I think they set out to do that and they absolutely nailed it. But yet these are spirits that I would want to take and play in my base game as well. I want to see how Fathomless Mud does with Thunder Speaker in a two-player game. I want to see these connections and integrate these into my base game. That's what they promised me they could do, and I really think that they did. These are spirits that I would absolutely want. Sometimes I just want a clean, I don't want to say easy game of Spirit Island because it's never easy, right? But a clean rules, I guess, to say, not a lot of exceptions and stuff like that. But I don't want to play the same 4 basic spirits, and I don't want to feel like I'm playing a base spirit. You don't feel like you're playing a base spirit. You feel like you're playing a straightforward spirit, but not a base spirit. There's still a lot of strategy to be discovered in what this offers. I think also because I have Spirit Island and I'm coming with that experience, I have extra components. I'm someone that has everything for Spirit Island already. So I have extra Dahan. I have extra explorers and towns and cities that I can replace because I don't really ever play a 6-player game. So I took those components, I got rid of most of the cardboard and upgraded this game with base Spirit Island. So this is now my travel version of the game. If I'm going to go to a cabin or something, or get away for the weekend, something like that. Or this is the version that I'm going to take with me because it's small, it's compact, it has everything I need in one little package. So it's going to be my getaway as well as my guide to teaching. I think a couple more times of playing that quick start guide and teaching that way, I won't need it anymore. I'll kind of have that memorized and be able to teach from memory this quick start guide. I can't think of anything better. I think that really simplifies it as a teacher. It simplifies it for travel. And I'm so glad that I have this version of the game in addition to my base Spirit Island game. So for that, if you're coming from a love of Spirit Island, this just checked so many boxes that I didn't know I needed. And then I can keep my base Spirit Island mixed in with all the expansions. So when I'm teaching somebody else, I don't have to go through and take out all the Jagged Earth cards and take out all the tokens and make sure they have spirits that don't use the extra tokens from Branch and Claw. I can leave my base game for my more experienced plays, and then this is going to be that supplement. So I'm really glad that I have this. In contrast to that, if you are new to Spirit Island, this is your entry point into it. This is maybe the first time you've heard of it. You got it on sale at Target. It's your favorite game, or it's your friend's favorite game of all time, and they got it and gifted it to you. This is the first time you're taking it out and putting it on your table. I unfortunately think you are going to find yourself immensely frustrated. Maybe I'm overselling it because I'm coming from that background, but I don't think so. I think these components are atrocious, and the frustration level of that is going to supersede any potential good of the game. I'm coming in pretty harshly at this. I'm going to come in at like a 5. I truly think the components are that unusable. I think it's going to be hard to tell what is what and what goes where. And especially, just the towns, the cities alone, which have the 3 roofs. And so they take 3 points of damage. In the base Spirit Island, it's already a fiddly process, right? Takes 1 damage, you end up putting it down where it has 2 contact points on the board. Takes another damage, you turn it to its other side, so 1 contact point. But you can still see how many contact points does it have to the earth. That is the amount of damage it has taken, or the amount of health it has left, right? So when we see this, we already know it's fiddly. This takes that and somehow makes it even more fiddly, which just blows my mind. So it's still just a 2-sided token. Obviously, they only have 2 sides, but it's 1 damage, and then it takes another damage. You're supposed to put an energy on top of it, further complicating the board, further looking for issues with getting knocked over, or if you're pushing it, or if you're pulling it. It's just so much is happening on such a small, static board that I think it is... I was so frustrated with my plays. I gave it 2 different plays with these tokens. The first one, I made it through it grumbly and dragging through it and just really struggled. The second one, I gave up. Flat out, I didn't finish. I started replacing all the tokens right then and there and haven't gone back other than to do the setup for this video. So I did keep them on hand. I do keep some of those tokens in the base game as well, now that I've upgraded them, just in case I run out. But I think that if you're new to it, the quick start guide is fantastic. Trying to understand that and implement it and go step by step, added with the confusion of being in the book and then back in the board and be like, wait, that was in this land, right? Not this land? Oh, hold on, now I'm confused. I think the components are that bad. So I'll stop harping on that. I think if you're new to Spirit Island, though, it's a fantastic entry point, but unfortunately the components are just going to cloud that and completely muddy that water to the point of it's going to be more frustration than there's going to be actual enjoyment. So you might walk away being like, I like what this game is doing, but I can't quite visualize it or make it work. So as promised, my final thoughts, and this will be my, official rating of this game, somewhere between a 5 and a 9.5. I think that with all my gripes of the components and everything, the quick start guide, the spirits it offers, the progression cards it offers, everything they were going for is so good. I'm going to come in at an 8.5 on this game. So it's still much higher than my gripe for new people. And I think that that's just because the good so far outweighs that really, really bad. The components are rough. The cardboard gets in the way. It's great quality, but it renders the game pretty unusable. But I think there are some solutions out there, and if you already have the game or you could upgrade it, something like that, I think what you get in this box is everything that they promised, components aside. So with that, it still gets my seal of excellence. That's going to be an 8.5 for Horizons of Spirit Island. Thanks for joining me. Let me know down below if you have played it, if you had the problems with the components I did, and of course, what's your favorite spirit? I personally like Fathomless of the Mud because, well, mud otter. Need I say more? Until next time, I'm Camilla Cleghorn. Take care.